With the glut of superhero content out right now, it's easy to forget or even hard to believe how sparse that content was some 20 years ago. As a kid, I was hungry for superheroes and I can't even tell you why. I would honestly take them wherever I found them. What do you know about Super Ted?
Then, from outer space, a spotty man brought him to life with his cosmic dust.
Dude, I was desperate. I can tell you stories. But the first company that properly satiated that appetite was DC Comics, and I watched them for years until I discovered Marvel. I say all this to say, whenever a superhero show comes along that can introduce new audiences to a property in a way that respects the source material, I have to champion it. One of my earlier videos was about Marvel's Superhero Squad show, and my friend asked me why I wasn't talking about the better show. You're welcome, anonymous friend who will probably out himself in the comments. Justice League Action is a fairly recent show that ran for 52 episodes and 22 shorts between 2016 and 2018, until it was ultimately cancelled due to lower ratings than expected. For whatever reason in this upside-down bizarro world, Teen Titans Go consistently performed much better. I'm starting to develop conspiracy theories about this cartoon ratings, because week after week I talk about these amazing shows that somehow all suffered the exact same fate. Someone needs to look into that. But the versions of characters on Justice League Action are some of my favorite versions in all the DC shows. The Brave and the Bold is a close second in terms of fun factor, but this show really nails the introduction to DC vibe. The obvious standout for me and a lot of other people was Firestorm. As I've previously mentioned in other videos, I love characters who don't take themselves too seriously. Firestorm had a dope catchphrase, "The heat is on!" and he was emblematic of the overall approach to this show. A great episode that showcased his personality and the overall vibe of the show was the Garden of Evil episode. It featured the aforementioned Firestorm and Superman, who made a really cool entrance, Vixen, Swamp Thing, Batman, Poison Ivy, and Harley Quinn. Poison Ivy had turned the city into, well, a Garden of Evil, and recruited Harley Quinn to do the legwork for her. Due to the scope of the threat, the superheroes teamed up to solve it. Their personalities played off each other really well, and the character movement and animation was really kinetic and just excellent. Something you'll notice in these properties that I've been heaping praise on is that they all have a very consistent vision and tone. There's no illusion as to what they were going for, and you can tell everyone was on board for the brand of humor and the optimism that carried through the entire show. It's predominantly comedic, but I don't think the goal was to make the audience laugh out loud in every episode. It's just enjoyable to see how they vibe and play off each other. They also exchanged silly nicknames, which I found endearing, even though the recipients of the nicknames weren't always pleased.
Thanks for standing in, buddy. Whoa-who's never gonna know.
Whoa-whoa? Destroy them, Schmoopy!
I'm not your Schmoopy.
Schmoopy?
Schmoopy?
DC Comics has a very diverse cast of characters, from spacefaring to magical to street level, and the tone across all of them here was cohesive. I also really liked Superman in this. As someone who grew up with Dean Cain as Superman on TV, I always hated how he was brawn first and brains last. Kinda like that other guy. My favorite episode of his was Under a Red Sun, where he was kidnapped by Steppenwolf. Thank you. And taken to a planet with, well, a red sun. So he spent the episode literally under a red sun. No false advertising here. He didn't have his powers, but thank goodness they gave him a brain. Oh, for those who don't know, Superman gets his powers from the yellow sun, so whenever he's exposed to red sun energy, he loses his powers. I honestly haven't read much of Superman comics, but it was nice for once to see him literally act like a Boy Scout and use all the resources around him to his advantage. He managed to beat Steppenwolf without his powers, and even Batman and Big Barda were jealous. It was clearly a love letter to Superman, which is the type of thing you only get from true fans of the Man of Steel. There's also a short called It's a Trap, where he plays the stereotypical gullible Superman, but by the end of the short, it turns out he was baiting Lex the whole time. This is a Superman I like. I think I'll just stick to the main three and add a special mention of 3 others at the end, because the show has almost every DC character you can think of. I'm not up for the challenge of breaking down every single one of them on this video. We would be here for hours. But before switching to Batman, I couldn't find the budget of this show, but looking at the visuals and the voice cast with Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, Mark Hamill, Tara Strong, and several other notable names, you can tell DC put a lot into it and it shows in all the ways that matter. I guess this is another time capsule wrapped neatly in a bow, never to be continued, but 52 episodes and 22 shorts is a good number to go out on. There's a lot of content in that one season and the episodes are very rewatchable. Like this short where Lobo was trying to capture the Flash and they decided to parody Roadrunner.
Meep, meep.
What's up with all these shows and their parodies and references? I can make a whole documentary about cartoon shows referencing each other. Anyway, I hope I didn't build up Batman too much cause there's not too much to say about him. He's the Batman you know and love and he does all the things you come to expect from him. As I mentioned, Kevin Conroy voiced him and we all know how much he loved the character, so he was done right. If I'm to recommend an episode, I liked his team up with Booster Gold because they were polar opposites, but I really like how they found common ground at the end. Not much else to add about Batman really. He was really good as he usually is. The one I found interesting was Wonder Woman, a character I've just never ever vibed with because I don't find her that interesting. In this show, they gave her a bit of a punk rock look with the hair and I think she and the overall character design of this show was supposed to be youthful and trendy. Seeing as how the ratings were being compared to Teen Titans Go, I think they were appealing to the same younger audience. She had a romantic relationship with Superman, which I know is not a very popular creative direction for many people. They tend to prefer the close platonic approach, but personally I don't have a strong preference either way. They at least acknowledged that each of them were having issues with their usual pairings of Steve Trevor and Lois Lane, which again adds to my point that the writers had a lot of reverence for the character origins. They didn't sweep the established lore under the carpet, but I found Wonder Woman to be fun in this. She wasn't stuck up or angry or anything, she was just cool. So with Firestorm and DC's main three covered, my secret three that I was leaving for the end were Booster Gold, Space Cabbie, and Constantine. Constantine to most of you, but I keep hearing that it's Constantine from Alan Moore or something. I just like Constantine as a character and it was cool to see how they approached someone who belongs in much darker shows. The answer is pretty well. At his core, he was still the same nonchalant character but in a more jovial setting that still held on to the stakes you'd come to expect. Just good stuff. Space Cabbie wasn't someone I was familiar with, but he was in some of my favorite episodes. Great introduction of the character, which I guess was the point of the show, introducing us to the wider DC universe. I'll definitely be looking more into the character because the concept of a Space Cabbie really has legs. My only surprise is that the show did not pair Firestorm and Booster Gold the same way that Marvel does with Spider-Man and Deadpool. There was so much potential for those two characters on the show. Neither of them took anything seriously, which is such a goldmine for comedy. All in all, this is a big recommendation from me for anyone who wants to discover DC superheroes or just have a good time. If you want to get more of the vibe of the show before you dive in, you can find the shorts here on YouTube. Otherwise, let me know if you enjoyed the show and who your favorite characters were, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.